Hi, hello, Vanakkam and Sastri Akal. I am Badri and I'm super excited to bring forward my first ever podcast named Coffee with Bagel Show, which is basically me yapping about questions to amazing founders, business leaders, product leaders, creators, and whatnot. So a lot of times I get asked to myself, why do a podcast in 2025? And the basic answer to it is I really love talking. And being a lead product manager in a product based company in Dubai, my job is primarily communicating to stakeholders, making sure the company gets revenue, money in the bank, people are happy. So that leads to me channelizing my energy towards a lot of talking. And I really was excited to do something to do with that energy. And podcast was just one way to, finally bring that piece into light. So if you know me already, or if you don't know me already, I kindly request you guys to stay until the end because I've always wondered how you guys would perceive the entire show and how you can give me criticism or feedback about whatever I'm trying to do. And that will not be possible without you guys staying until the end. And with that being said, I would love to brew some conversations with two amazing founders that I brought on my first ever episode. And I would love to introduce Sneha and Anushka from the company Spur, which there I would love to hear out a quick brief introduction, maybe a chronological deep dive or chronological brief order of things that you've done to make yourself to get here. And that'll be our first ever introduction that you guys want to do. Yeah,
Yeah, we're
you
so
guys.
excited. Yeah, we're so excited to be on the pod and the first guest. So super honored to get you that. And I can say for sure, Badri loves to speak a lot. So know that
Yeah.
with you for the
Thanks.
last year or so. Um, so I'm Sneha, and maybe we can just start with a few introductions. So I'm Sneha. I'm the CEO at Spur, um, and this is
Oh,
Anushka.
hi everyone. I'm Anushka. I'm the CTO at Spur.
And
Awesome,
yeah,
awesome.
we both, I think maybe we can give you a bit of a backstory on Spur and what we do. So Spur is
Sure.
essentially a AI test automation platform. So basically automating testing with AI web agents. And for some context on maybe some backstory on how we got started, Anushka and I both met our freshman year of college. I'm originally from Singapore. Anushka was from India. We both were in the US at that point, or actually across the world. 2020 was the year of COVID.
Yeah.
So we were living in isolation in the college campuses. And that was when we spent a lot of time together and became really good friends first, and then quickly realized that we just had a hunger to build. So throughout our 4 years in college, we found ourselves working on multiple different versions of Spur. And everything that we worked on was always called Spur. But now what we're working on is an AI testing platform. So we basically worked on the product while we were in college and then got into Y Combinator, had an amazing run in YC, raised our seed, and now we're basically off to the races.
Awesome, awesome. That's really great for hearing from you then. So I just want to quickly deep dive into what are you guys building and what is Spur. It's like let's take it a step down. Like what can you like break down why the name Spur came in and what made you think to add that name to a startup and why not something more fancy with that dot AI and all of that and like maybe jog through that. Naming your baby experience.
Yeah, so for more context, the first time we came up with the name Spur was when Stan and I were both in San Francisco. We had our first internships and we realized that we really wanted to work on something together. Our first idea, as expected, was a consumer social idea. It was a social calendar that allowed people to book things in the spur of the moment. And I think for one thing about us is that we're people who really care about product experience. So the lowbrow way of saying this is we just want to work on things that look pretty and make people feel great. And Spur was a central part of our branding, or the central part of the branding on everything we worked on. It was the two things that we were sure about. I think the co-founding team and the title Spur, because we've just worked on so many iterations of making this word and like building branding materials around it. And today, like, yeah, you can see it. Worked hard on this logo. Now it's about testing in the spur of the moment.
So awesome. And when you guys said you were building it all throughout college, and did you guys wanted to get into entrepreneurship into like, when you were building it, or like was it like something hobby, or like was it like just like a cool project that you guys working with AI, or was it a lab, or how was the inflecting point where you said, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do as a revenue generating thing, or like entrepreneurship and such?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of different factors. I think one big thing was Anushka and I, we both did internships at pretty like well established companies. I was working at Figma, Anushka worked at DeepMind, and then she's also worked at Meta. So we had that exposure to like what working in a top tech company is like. But we quickly realized that it just felt too big, and we felt like there was a lot more that we wanted to do, and we were a lot more hungry to really work on something that is your own. And that feeling started coming in. And also, we were fortunate enough that Anushka and I are both technical. We're both really good friends. We had like that experience in AI and product, and we could see ourselves being a really good founding team. So we actually wanted to give it a shot. So in 2023, we actually booked an Airbnb for about 2 weeks,
Okay.
where it was just time to build. So we just spent those 2 weeks locked up inside. It was a nice Airbnb. And we just spent time just like hacking on something, and just to see how it would be like working together, 24/7. And we loved it. Like we did all nighters, and this was all for no reason. Like we were not getting paid for this. We were just doing this for the fun of it. And that was when we realized that, okay, there is really something here. And after that, even when we went off to do our internships, we were constantly thinking about, okay, like what is our plan post college? Like what can we work on? So our entire senior year of college was essentially moving in that direction. And then, of course, the third factor was definitely AI. I think um, AI was something that was so interesting. Agents was so interesting. Like the technology was so interesting to work on. And we wanted to be at the bleeding edge of that. And both of us had been working at the Yale NLP lab. So we do have a research background. So we weren't just coming at it from a technical standpoint, but we really understood you know, the underlying tech of agents. And we were speaking to the top researchers at that point. So we just felt like everything was kind of falling into place for us to start a company.
More like, so you felt that it was like a calling for you guys to do something in that space, or was it something like driven with, hey, I think there's some kind of gap that I saw, and doing something like this will help bridge it, and maybe you can make money off it? Was that something that you guys thought about, or like when you said you worked out of an Airbnb, just to put a wild imagination, was it in Tahoe where you had an entire cabin to sit and brainstorm something or something like that? Okay,
It's in
no,
New Haven. It was in New
okay,
Haven, which is
a big ticket.
basically
Okay,
like travel. Like we were not meeting any people around us. New
okay,
Haven. So our college was in New Haven, and New
okay.
Haven is a small town. So there was really nothing around us that we were doing. We were just focused time inside that Airbnb. Uh, we would cook in there, work out in there, code in there, everything.
Yeah.
Uh, and the main
Okay.
purpose and point of that was also just to test what it's like working together, and how well we work together. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think you guys spoke a lot about how you got an inception. I'm just going to ask you the next question is, how does AI work for QA? Like, I know that Spur is about QA, but you guys didn't speak a lot about how it is about for QA and what are AI, how is it involving all of that, and just the things that you do in for Spur. Can you speak a little in depth about it?
Yeah,
Anyway,
so basically, okay, so basically QA for the longest time, there's like maybe two ways of grouping that. One is like manual QA, and then there's automation QA.
okay.
The issue with manual QA is manual QA is super manual. It doesn't scale. If you are a large company with a large product surface area, as you add more product, you're not going to be able to scale that QA. It's essentially having people go through flows on repeat. Then the second thing is on the automation side. Automation has existed for the last decade, but the issue there is since it's all very code first, these automation scripts that get generated take a long time to write. And at the same time, it takes a long time to maintain. Like one of our customers invested about 6 months in getting automation up, and then they went through a UI revamp, and everything was irrelevant, and they had to go through that whole process again. So with Spur, what we're doing is, firstly, we're making the process of writing a test very easy. So it's in natural language. So just like you would give instructions to a human to go through your flow, like click on this button, go through the travel booking flow, those are exactly how you'd write instructions on Spur. And then the
Okay.
second thing is, since it's agentic and AI based, and we're not doing it using a script, it's very dynamic. So even if the underlying interface changes, the tests are self healing and they don't break. They're just
Okay.
very dynamic. So let's say the position of the login button changes on the page. You don't have to go and update the script. The agent, since it's AI and agentic, it's going to automatically understand that and adapt the test for it. So we
Okay.
found that it really works in those two areas in which testing has really struggled with. Yeah.
Awesome. So I just want to break down some words that you threw. So agentic AI, self-healing. These may not be very easy to understand for someone who's, let's say you want to put it to a 5-year-old. Can you explain these two words and how it really is important to your software or tool that you're building?
So, okay, agentic is essentially, it's like operating a robot.
Okay.
You can, like, let's say you're operating a tractor. It's kind of like the same thing. Now, when you're operating Spur, the user is operating a robot that will actually go in and do a bunch of things. And that robot is beyond just like a mechanical robot. It has intelligence. Uh, it has intelligence to the maybe almost to the level of a human being, where you can tell the agent, go through a flow and it'll understand. So
Okay.
that is on the agentic side. And then self-healing is self-healing is more like, if you had an automation script, uh, which basically is like through code, you would actually tell, click on this login button with in this specific position of the screen, for
Okay.
example.
Okay.
And let's say the button moves from the middle of the screen to the top right corner. The automation script is not going to be able to, like, will not know that that's happened. It'll just execute what it's been told and click on the middle of the screen. There'll be nothing in the middle of the screen. Versus
Okay.
on Spur, the agent will first look at the screen, analyze the page, and see, oh, okay, I see that the button now is on the top right corner. So I'm going to adapt my instruction. And now, instead of clicking in the middle of the page, click on the top right corner. So that's basically like that self healing, intelligent aspect.
Awesome. Okay, so it just says you're basically trying to say that it kind of can understand what is changing, and with change, your system is going to, your agent or your AI agent is going to basically understand where to go next, or adapt to whatever change that you make. Yeah, that's really, really insightful. Okay, so since you gave a real good introduction about Spur and how you came into Inception, I just want to quickly move to your next segment that you spoke about. That was about your Y Combinator experience. And a lot of people in India have applied to Y Combinator, including myself. I have not gone through it. I really got great criticism and feedback, which came true eventually. But it was an experience in itself to make the video, to rehearse it and send it to them. It was nerve-wracking in some senses when you got an interview call and then you have to fight someone to get to the position and all that, right? So in India, a lot of people have this very primitive understanding about what happens in Y Combinator, or how do you get into it. Each season happens and people are not able to crack it. And I really want to bring that to light and demystify or debunk what's happening over there. So the first question, of course, would be like, how was your pitch video? Like, is it unlisted still, or is it public, or is it still there somewhere where I could go and find out? Or how was the experience with both of you sitting in one place talking about Spur very enthusiastically, however it was? What was that experience for you guys?
So interestingly, for our pitch video, Sneha actually had COVID, so we had
Oh,
to record it. We had to record it on Zoom. But I think this was something that we had always like. We had an idea of how we wanted to like present our idea, and we had like rehearsed it like Like just a bit. Like we wanted definitely to show like our authenticity for how much we wanted to work on our company, and what our company was about through our video. And that was something we really heavily indexed on. So it wasn't like we practiced for weeks. We just generally had an idea for what we wanted to say. The reason why we had this idea was because, for more context, we've been working on that version of Spur for 3 months already. And within that time, we'd done like 40 to 60 user interviews between the two of us. We'd already built out an MVP. We were speaking to our design partners. And while there were things that we could have learned better during those 3 months, we already had so much to say about the space we were building in. And that's what we leveraged to like build our pitch video. So I think it was really like that what gave us confidence to like get our enthusiasm for the idea across.
I think
Anushka is
the
also a theater student, so that is also why she was very
Yeah.
got
I,
into a
I
lot of our pitches. She's like, go natural, be spontaneous. So she's like,
Hmm.
she really indexes on not doing too much rehearsal, which
I think the
works.
pitch
Yeah.
video is about like 2.5 minutes, if I'm not wrong.
1 minute.
1
Oh,
minute.
1 minute? Okay. I am
Yeah.
wrong. So it's 1 minute? Okay. And you guys could get the entire elevator pitch with how you can solve something really, really groundbreaking in 1 minute.
I think it's you don't actually you have to pick and choose what you want to emphasize. I think sometimes it's more helpful to actually emphasize the chemistry that you like how like you and your co-founder. Why are you the right people to build this? And that is something that we actually indexed more. That like the first 20 seconds was actually just saying introducing ourselves, how we knew each other, and then kind of why are we the ones to build this product and what we're building. So
Okay.
indexing, so it depends on the strengths and weaknesses of your application. And if you feel like your background is the biggest selling point, then that is something that you should try to emphasize. Or if the fact is that you already gotten a product, you have a lot of customers, then that is what you should, emphasize in that 1 minute video.
Awesome. So when I was doing my own startup, it was called Take My Car, and in that time, I even if you wake me up in sleep, I can do a 1 minute pitch. That is how I was very glued to that elevator pitch because I used to be a guy who went to Bangalore, took an auto or a bike, Rapido, and basically knocked on investors' doors. And that's something I really did, and it worked in a lot of cases. So do you guys still remember your 1 minute pitch?
I think you had so many
Anushka is
evolutions.
smiling
Do
subtly
you?
there.
So many, there's so
I,
many
Yeah,
evolutions.
I was trying to ask you guys to emulate that again right now.
I don't remember the 1 minute pitch, but so when we were fundraising, I had almost like 50, 60 meetings in a week. And I was giving the same 20, 25 minute pitch to every investor. So that is glued to my brain right now.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember one
Okay,
day we
so
had 10 back-to-back calls, and I think there were points where we'd forgotten where we'd given a specific part of the pitch to the investor or not. So we would be like, oh, like, have we gone through this already?
awesome, awesome. Okay, I'll put to test some more things later. Quickly moving on to the next part, like we spoke about the video. That's just the starting of your application. You guys have to fill out a form and then submit it, and based on that, you guys are called back if that's what's happening. By
Yeah.
yeah, that you get a call back, and you guys are told to schedule an interview with one of the partners, and you guys
Mhm.
matched with one of the partners. Like, can you name the partner that you got matched with?
Yeah. The partner that we closely worked with was Jared Friedman. Yeah.
Okay. And with that being said, he must have taken your interview and got you guys accepted into the program, like the car accelerator. So how was the interview for you guys? What happened in the interview? I know how my interview went, but I would like to know how the AI wave of interviews happened because
Mm,
I closely watch every Y Combinator startup that's happening. The reason being, I am very curious as to what people are doing, and I've seen the fintech wave, I've seen the crypto wave, I've seen all kinds of different waves that Y Combinator did. And even they did the B2C wave. I mean, now it's the AI wave. So how was the interview for you guys? How well equipped was the partner? in terms of knowing about AI and knowing how well he can question you guys about it. So can you share some excerpts from your interview?
Yeah, I think every interview has a standard first question, which is what are you building? So that
Okay.
was the first question. And after that, our partner Jared, for some context, he's also technical. He's a very curious person. So even like in terms of understanding the tech behind it, he is someone who really, really wanted to get deep into it. And then the other thing is he's been at YC for over a decade. So he's actually seen the different generations of companies in the testing space. So the ones that are starting with like automation, and then ones that were trying to do AI before the tech was really a thing, and then our generation, which is, there is the tech is there, the demand is there, it's like the right time. So he asked some insightful questions, and I think from my perspective, I think what he was really trying to gauge is to understand how we were thinking and how quickly we were able to think and how sharp. So for each question, I think somewhere someone gave me advice that you don't want to actually ramble on. Like if he's asking a question, just answer it one line, two line, and full stop. You don't want to overexpose yourself.
Understood. So, okay. So, is there something that happened in the interview where you think was like the aha moment for like Jared, where he felt, hey, I think these dudes are doing something really great. I think we should accept them in and maybe nurture them out and see what happens. Was there any moment like that that you felt, okay, he's actually super convinced that he's going to get this?
Honestly, our interview was a 6.5 minute long interview. I distinctly remember this because we'd gotten, I think, the call back a week prior. And we'd prepped out like all of our questions from like this YC interview tool that would like flash questions in 30-second intervals. Um, I can't say there was a distinct point in it where I thought that they were more like super convinced. But I think the one thing they really indexed on throughout the interview was just like what made us like capable of building this company. Does that make sense? So, like, what unique insight we have in the space? Like, what is motivating us to build it? Why are we the people of all the people in the world to build this? And those were the three questions that they had asked us, and that we had, yeah, that was basically the 6.5 minutes of the interview was just that, apart from our intros.
Okay, so since you said it's a short amount of time that you spent, do you really think that pedigree of a person really, really matters in that application? Like, for example, I'll throw it in a very different perspective because I am still catering the questions to the Indian audience before I go to the US audience. So the Indian audience here might not come from a typical IIT background. IITs here, the Ivy League of, you know that. So let's say I come from a tier two college, I have a solid idea and I still don't get into it. Is it because I don't have that background, or do you think that, having a solid idea is enough, or like, how is it like? What has been your cohort been like? And have you seen someone being an edge case, or are edge cases like normal there, or how is it working out?
I would say, honestly, the idea is really something that they would index the least upon,
Hmm.
primarily because everybody can have that same idea.
Hmm.
Like maybe like it's like what we're doing, someone else can get that idea, but it's all down to execution. So what the founders are looking for is there is this analogy which is like they're actually evaluating the machine and not the output of the machine, because at that early stage, how am I going to be able to really gauge the output? Like you've only worked on this for, let's say, maybe 5 to 6 months or a year. So it makes more sense for them to actually evaluate the machine that is generating the output. So that is the team. And one factor in that is the background. But if the person doesn't have that pedigree, so called, like that is not something they necessarily like only index on. It is just a signal to them that okay, this is adding to the like quality of the machine. So if you
Yeah.
can provide other signals, like have a solid GitHub, have a track record of technical ability, because they really index on technical ability more than whether you're from an Ivy League, IIT. They want to actually see that this person can build. Have you built something? Have you shipped something to actual customers before? Those are the things that they're really looking for. more than the background. This is also part of the background, less than the pedigree. So if you have like, if you're a hacker, you have a really good like GitHub, you always building things, you're on Hacker News, things like that, those are things that they would really look for. And I would say those are things that, if you're not necessarily from the US, those are things that would really make your application stand out beyond just the idea, because the idea, it can't bring you that far after a point in the application, because hundreds of people might have the same idea as you.
So ultimately, it boils down to the person maybe outstanding in some kind of form or factor, which will make them feel that if this guy comes into our cohort, he could do something really big, and the idea could be propelled if the founder is really, really great. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, there's a second thing though. Beyond just the idea, the market that you're serving has to be big enough. So
Okay.
you can have a good idea, but if it's not a venture scalable market, then that will also make it very difficult for them to accept you. So that is also one first check mark that you have to do. If this goes
Okay.
big, how big is the market, and is it actually venture scalable? This is also something that we ended up realizing, more and more as we got into the venture world, where venture fundraising is very different from just someone giving you some money to work on a startup, because they are looking for the multiples.
Got
Yeah.
So you need to service a market that has a big enough TAM. When TAM means total addressable market.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing about YC is that they so heavily index on founders that we've seen so many founding teams in our batch or from previous batches that got into YC, and then the partners email them saying, hey, we're really convinced about you as a team, but we just don't think your idea is something that is scalable or something that will work with like VC funding. Can you work on something else? And so many teams have gotten in like that. Like they've had like a month to maybe work on a different idea, and they get in based on the second idea they worked on rather than the first idea. So it's very much very heavily indexed on the founding team and not the idea.
Understood. So gotcha. So it's also like you don't have a great idea, but I believe in you. Go build something else. Is that what they, on a high level saying? Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, so you got into YC. It is your day one. You're seeing a lot of new and different people. You've been into that space. You're introducing yourself. What happens on day one, and what happens in the first sprint, or like 2 weeks, or the first month, and how long is actually YC when you get in?
Yeah, YC is a 3 month accelerator program, and you can break it down into every 2 week sprints. So the first week was actually, they kicked it off with a YC retreat. So they have a bunch of companies. You're split into a group of companies basically, and a
Okay.
group has maybe, I don't know, like 80 companies in a group, let's say, and
Okay.
you do like a retreat, so it's an opportunity for you to meet other companies. And one interesting thing that I remember from the retreat was there were 1 minute pitches that all the companies had to do on the spot. We weren't told that we had to prepare a 1 minute pitch. We just got there to the retreat and they were like, okay, this evening there's going to be a 60-second pitch, and we're going to actually, the partners, after listening to the pitches, are going to pick out the 5 most promising companies that they think based on the pitch. And that was when Spur started taking the spotlight. We were one of the companies so we went ahead and pitched, and then we were one of the top 5 companies, and then they brought the top 5 companies back again to the stage to pitch again. And it was a really cool experience, and that was what yeah, so that is something about the retreat. So they're trying to create that competitive environment where, you know, not necessarily in a bad way, but just more so from a motivational standpoint, like, let's, get that energy up, that okay, this is like the next 3 months is going to be heads down, building growth, acceleration, roller coaster basically. So it really set us up for that, and also was a great opportunity to meet other founders. And in fact, all the founders that we know and are close to after the batch really came from that, 2 to 3 day retreat. And then after that, you have group office hours every 2 weeks with your group partner and people in your section. So generally 8 other companies in your section. And in those office hours, you basically decide on a goal for the next 2 weeks. And then on each office hour, all the companies would go around in a circle. The partners would actually have like a screen with all the company names and whether you've hit the goal or not hit the goal. And this could be goals in the sense of, okay, in the next 2 weeks, I want to hit 5K in MRR, monthly recurring revenue, or in the next 2 weeks, I want to have 50 live customers, things like that. And it's very interesting because some companies will not totally not hit the goal. They might have zero. And you have to say that. And then the partners would really like tear you down. But it's also an opportunity for everybody to learn from everyone else and also understand what some companies are doing really well. So there was another custom company in our batch that landed some really big enterprise customers while they were in the batch with free product. So everyone learned a lot from them in terms of how they did sales and marketing, where maybe you can sell without even having a product, things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have anything to add, Anushka? Was this the first month or like how
Generally, how the
The
3 months
the
work.
whole the 3 months going? Okay, that's great. Okay,
yeah, the
so
one
how,
thing about the goals. Oh, sorry.
I'll ask one more question and then probably you can add into that. So,
Okay.
getting into Y Combinator, how did it transform your approach to product development? Like, were you very native to what you guys trying to build? Was it like you got a lot of feedback from like you said 80 different companies, so 80 into 2 is like 160 people. So is that group giving you a lot of insights? How was the collaboration there? Was it, you said competitiveness, but was it also collaborative? What did you guys speak about on a daily basis? Because you guys are going to be very close. Being in like it's like in an Olympic village for the good parts of it. How is that to your product development? And yeah, you can also add to the previous question.
Yeah, so the one thing I would say YC very much emphasized on was the idea of collaboration. So it wasn't a competitive environment at all in that sense. It was a very motivating environment. So when you saw other people and the kind of things people were able to achieve in like 2 week sprints or like 3 week sprints, or the company you saw like in the first week of the batch pivoted like 3 weeks in and then still at the end of the batch was doing so wonderfully. Like I think that was like so great seeing like other founders in such close knit community like achieve so much. So I think that was like it was really like a huge learning opportunity for everyone involved. So I remember like staying in after like a dinner to discuss how to build like the best like bot, right? So like what kind of newer technologies were out there, like what GitHub repo I should go check out. And I like these were the kind of like amazing conversations we'd have. So like around tech, around sales, like we got the idea for doing deal rooms from one of the other like companies in our batch. They were in our section. They were amazing. We got the idea to, or like figured out how to build like the infrastructure that runs all of our Chrome browsers from a different company in our section. And hopefully like we were able to help out people in the same way that so many people helped us out. So I would say like so much of the output that we gained or like were able to achieve during the batch was because of the input of all these other teams working with us, both on the sales end and on the technical end. The one thing to note was like YC very much indexed on output goals and not process goals. So what that means is like every 2 weeks we would set an output goal. What does that mean? Like it's like, okay, I'm gonna get to like an X number in MRR, or I'm gonna get to like 10 customers to like start adopting our product, or maybe I'll go implement 3 more like customers onto the product. And these are output goals. Process goals would be something like, okay, I'm going to speak to 60 more companies as to maybe like figure out like the space or design partnerships. So that's a process goal because that doesn't really lead you to a tangible output. The idea is like once you send an output goal, you backwards calculate the kind of work you need to do. So an example of that would be, say my deal funnel is like for every like 200 companies that do inbound to me, like 20 of them will like sign up for an actual like demo. And then from those 20, like maybe I'll be able to close 5, right? So that means that if I wanted to get to 10 more customers, I would need to do 400 like more out like inbound, or somehow get like 400 more inbound customers. So they really encourage that, and I think that helps you think about your company in a kind of shifts perspective, because there's always so much work to be done, but when you're setting output goals, it really helps build like laser focus and helps you prioritize. So if it means that if I need to close 5 more customers, what is the work I need to do on the product end and on the sales end in these 2 weeks? And that that was, I think, like the biggest shift in the way that we were building the company.
Okay. So I'm going to quickly be a little playing towards the devil's advocate. I'm going to ask you questions which might maybe hurt the way you think, but I'm still going to ask it because I'm curious and maybe you have a different answer to it. So when you were at YC, what is something that was very challenging in terms of a feedback that you got, or someone who was an investor that, or someone you looked up to, or someone who's your, I don't know, someone who really, really mattered to you gave you a feedback, or someone who really didn't really matter but was your cohort peer gave you a feedback, or those kind of challenges, a challenging feedback, which was kind of very, very pivotal for you to think, is this something that we're trying to do? Is it right, wrong? Can we do better? Something like that. That kind of moment happened ever in your 3 months journey? Okay, you guys are thinking so out loud.
I think okay. I think this was like not necessarily. So for some context, we got accepted in YC in December of 2023, and we started the batch in May. So we were already working with our group partner before we got to the batch. So one big learning was talking to your customers. Even though this was like something that obviously like you know, like obviously I should talk to my customers. We found ourselves actually build, like we were just itching to build something before actually getting it into the hands of customers. And because of that, there was a constant misalignment between what we were building and what people really wanted and what people really wanted to pay for. So this thread of just like drop everything, talk to your customers, and really just keep talking to your customers, even if the product is not where it is right now, show it to them, bring it to them, ship it, and then get feedback. Because we were to some extent perfectionists in the sense that we were taking a long time to even launch our product. So we actually did in the YC batch, many companies, it's recommended to do a launch as soon as you enter the batch. We waited until August to do our launch, which in the end worked out fine for us. But in fact, we could have done this way sooner because you would have
Okay.
gotten a lot more feedback and, you know, gotten into the face of customers. So I think the biggest criticism or biggest feedback was talking to your customers and also just not being afraid to launch quickly and failing, like launch fast, fail fast, learn fast. Like that iteration
Yeah.
cycle is something you learn in YC. Of course, outside of YC, that might look a little different. You might not necessarily want to just keep launching. But in the batch, that advice really helps.
Okay. Also, with respect to, so I also want to make sure people get a sense of a timeline.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask you this question before, but I'll put it right now. So when was your application time? When did you apply? When did you get accepted? Like just put dates or months to it. And then when did you actually go to the SF YC house? And then when did you graduate? When did you do your demo day? And all of that. Like, can you put it into timelines?
Yeah. And okay, for our case, ours is a little bit unique because we applied early. So essentially, we applied for YC in November of 2023.
Okay.
We got accepted sometime in December of 2023. And
Okay.
we got accepted to the batch starting in June. So not the winter batch, the batch starting in the summer, because we wanted to graduate first. So we graduated in May, and then we flew to SF right after graduation in June. The batch started in July, and the batch was from July to September. Demo day was in September, and yeah, so that is the timeline.
And anything after demo day, what happens after demo?
After demo day, generally you most companies will try to raise their seed round. So we did that. We raised our seed, and
Okay,
then
before you go to funding, I'll direct it
yeah,
towards another question. So, my next question was regarding demo day. And since you said after your 3 months, you'll just do sprints and you'll try to build a product. Maybe sometimes it's an MVP, sometimes it's a more mature one. And then you guys have something called as demo day, like you want to launch a product. That's what you said. So when you mean launch, does it mean like you're going to launch to the world or it's going to be internal? And when you launch, are there companies that fail to launch? Are there companies that have not really been able to cope up with the YC program, had to drop out, all these kind of failure situations? Have you seen all of that? And what do you mean by launch and how does Spur work with launch? What did you guys do?
So by launch can mean different things for different people, right? It depends on, are you a B2C company? Are you like gonna be a B2B company? Are you B2B SaaS? Like who are you selling to? Like there could be, for example, there could be a B2C company that sells things only in Taiwan, right? That's a that launch looks very different from say like I'm maybe like a company that builds defense tech. So who like for whom am I building this company? Who is my target customer? And launch basically means like you actually start making yourself visible so that your target customers can either start learning about you or you start outbounding to them, right? So that is basically, you can think of launch as being like the start or the official start of your inbound funnel in some ways. Or at least that's what it was for us. So when we launched on all of the socials that YC has. We launched on LinkedIn, um, Bookface, so on and so forth. So for more context, Bookface is like the internal YC forum. Typically a week before or a few weeks before you do a public social launch, which is outside the YC community, some companies do an internal Bookface launch. So since we're a B2B SaaS company, a lot of our target customers are other YC companies as well who build like we're building technology and struggle with testing. So we first did an internal book phase launch, and then we did our outbound, like social launch. For a defense tech company, a lot of their customers might not be YC companies, right? So then they might go straight to doing like an external launch. Or if I'm a defense tech company, again, it might not make sense for me to launch internally first or even launch on LinkedIn. Maybe I should directly start speaking to my customers like through like outbounding channels. So that is the scenario. Like launches mean very different from different types of companies. There's as such like no like some companies also don't launch at all publicly. That could be for various reasons, right? Like maybe you don't feel it's a good time for your product. Maybe it is like you're actually like it's a really competitive space. So you don't want to like outwardly announce like what you've worked on. So we've seen also cases like that, but generally, um, most companies like launch within like the 3 months of the batch itself because that is really like it's basically you can think of it as a process goal to an output goal, right? So the more visibility you get, the more likely it is that your MRR or your ARR increases. So it tends to be like kind of like an input to the output of getting more and like getting more customers or getting more revenue in general.
Understood. So while you were saying all of that, that you guys have very different metrics or milestones that mattered for each company the most. With that being said, what was the metrics and milestones that mattered for you while you were launching? And let's say 6 months after launch, what were you putting out as a roadmap for your metrics and milestones to be moved on? What was that kind of thought process around that?
So when we were in the batch, our output metrics was monthly recurring revenue, as well as the number of customers. Very simple. But post batch, the things that we are focusing the most on is customer satisfaction and activation. So in fact, we are indexing obviously revenue, all of that matters. But the biggest focus right now is satisfaction. And how are we measuring that is just how happy we can make our customers, how satisfied are they, how much value can we generate for each customer, which eventually will just, our idea is it will just balloon into a very repeatable sales cycle where then we can really focus on that go to market effort, which is now something where we're at right now, where we've really built the product to a point where all of our customers are extremely happy with us. They really like the product. And we're entering this exciting phase of go to market and scaling. And I know, Badri, I chatted a bit about that with you as well. So this is going to be a big learning for us. But yeah, starting to do a big push on bringing Spur out there to the rest of the world.
All right, so I'll quickly jump to the next segment, which is the following segments are going to be a little overlapping with YC questions and also what you guys are doing. So Spur's future. We talked about how we're building agentic AI, self-healing, and how you're trying to bridge the companies having QA problems and all of that. So when you're doing all of this, what was like something that a frustration point that you saw from a customer's point of view, one good frustration point where you felt your tool really, really, really fitting, and also a frustration point for you where you felt, hey, I think I'm not able to solve something like that, and I would love to solve it, but I don't know how to solve it. Something like that, where you felt or had a frustration point, and you thought, okay, maybe in the future we could do it, or not do it. It's something that's out of your control. Was there something like that in your AI journey that you were doing on this one? So there are two questions. First for the customer.
Maybe I'll take the first customer one, and then Anushka can talk about the
Yeah.
thing. So from the customer standpoint, I think the biggest impact we have with Spur is when a when we're talking to a customer that has actually spent a lot of time trying to do automation, and spent a lot of and also they have a product that's extremely dynamic where they're moving very quickly. So every month, they're seeing changes in their interface. They're always iterating on their product, but at the same time, it's so customer and consumer facing that any bug will actually have a direct impact on their revenue. So they really need to, like, quality is something that they have to really focus on. So we've seen that those are the customers that we're really able to support because two things. One, writing a test on Spur is really easy. Maintaining these tests are also extremely easy. So even if the interface changes, it's very easy, or they might not even have to do anything to adapt to these changes. So when a customer has those pain points, we think that Spur really works well. And that's kind of like that segment that we're indexing on. It's also a company that is relatively large, so they do have a large surface area. Maybe a startup might be able to just manually test things, and that is not an issue. But once a company starts scaling, that's when they're really feeling the problem of not being able to scale manual testing, or automation just not being moving fast enough.
Okay. And the second
Yeah.
question was for you guys. When you were building it out, was there a frustration that was built or something that was boiling that bubbled up and you guys wanted to really solve it but couldn't, or solve it later at point of time? Something like that came
Yeah.
that could have inflicted somewhere.
Yeah. So something that both of us, okay, from our personal experience and speaking to all of the customers that we've like spoken to, like we can emphatically say that no one wants to do any kind of testing. Like anytime I've worked on a personal project, like testing has been my least favorite part, right? Like for our customers, it's very much the same. And for us, that means that like how low lift can we make testing? Like our vision is basically you enter your URL and like that is it. Like all of your tests are set up and that is where we're building our company to reach. Like that is our vision and what we're working towards. And we want to make that process as easy as possible. So today, like people still like do some kind of input into Spur that tells the agent what to do, or maybe they're doing like through a different like modem or like a medium of like input, like telling the agent how to test the application. We want to make like we want to remove even that barrier to entry. Like we literally want to make it as easy as someone puts in your URL and we generate all of the tests for you, and they're automatically like updated and maintained and notify you of all the bugs.
Yeah, just spinning back to, so that's really awesome. Like I understand what you guys are building, but just spinning back to this question again, was the question was, did you guys have any frustration while building this? Which could have come from a customer or while building it, or from just the natural way of you guys were dealing with AI. Maybe back in 2023 or 2024, early 2024, where you were very primitive to your entire tool. Was there a frustration? Was the question.
I think, okay, right now, it's really interesting. I think a lot of other AI companies will be facing this challenge. AI is constantly improving. Your product is constantly improving. So one thing that is challenging is product education, because what we were telling customers 6 months ago, for example, on Spur 6 months ago, a customer would actually have to say, let's say you're going through a login flow, they would say, type the email into the email field, type the password into the email field. Now we're at a point where you can actually tell the agent to fill out the form with random values. So it's like, how can I tell the customer like what the extent of intelligence you can operate with? It's kind of hard to communicate, because this is actually a skill that sometimes customers have to also understand, that they're prompt engineering now. It's not just describing actions, but if you want to really take the test to another level, you can also use the AI's intelligence and tell it to do things like fill out the form, verify that the images match up to the listing that you're on, for example. So that aspect is definitely challenging. We are still figuring out what's the best way to communicate that with customers. Our solution right now is just working very closely with each customer and telling them what we've seen work well with our product. And we're also learning from our customers. Like, our customers find different ways of prompting the agent that we wouldn't have known. For example, one of our customers is in the travel space, and they have a travel agent, an AI travel agent, and this um he's basically found out an intelligent way to test whether their agent is actually handling customer requests correctly or not on Spur. So some of the prompts are like, have a two-way conversation with the customer in a negative tone. Verify that their travel agent is responding in a positive manner. Things like this, use cases that you've just not seen before. And I think this is generally a thing with AI, because the technology is improving, and then the way you explain to users what your product can do is constantly changing every month. So it's kind of getting your customers to also understand that, okay, there's an intelligence behind this, there's a certain level of flexibility that you have. Features are not just features, but you can actually push the limits now. It's like the way you use Chat GPT, some people use it very well, some people just use it very mediocrely. Similarly with Spur, if you really spend and invest the time in understanding the AI, you can actually become a power user. So just learning how to communicate that has been a challenge, but it's also been really interesting.
Awesome. So I'll follow up with the question. So whatever you were saying, two main things which I really got into my mind was self-healing, again, and agentic. So question I want to ask you is, what was your challenge, technical challenge, in terms of building a self-healing AI agent? Was there something that already was there and you had to write a wrapper, or were you building it from scratch, or how do you think you're setting yourself apart in the self-healing and the agentic AI model?
Yeah, so for more context, like the specific workflow that powers Spur today, or like the different micro agents we call in the entire architecture, was something that we worked on for like many months at the Yale lab. So this was where we were working very closely with kind of the state-of-the-art researchers and the state-of-the-art labs working in the agentic space, and that is where we kind of learned how to leverage like LLMs, which are generally like non-deterministic, right? So that was like the biggest challenge. Like how do you get an infinite, like a theoretically infinite canvas of a web page which has like infinite number of coordinates and infinite number of things you can do, and how do you get like an agent to deterministically reason about the same flows again and again and perform the same action. So that was basically the major challenge of building a web navigation agent, most of which we were able to like address. So as Sneha said, like for context, up until May, like Explore was basically a research demo of a bug finding agent. So it looked very ugly. There was no product around it, and we did not start building product
And
until
this
we
was
were
in
confident.
2024, like
May
the
of
May
2024.
2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
until May of 2024, the way we would test the agent is like it would be like a really ugly like HTML form that would instruct the agent to go do something, right? So we didn't even start thinking about product until we were sure that the agent would work. And the hardest part of this was it was not a very well documented space for the most part. So a lot of it was just we had to run a ton of experiments. Some of these were very time consuming. So we once tried out a new architecture that we spent like 2 weeks developing and then like a whole week and a half implementing. That just didn't work at all for various reasons. But it was really hard because we hadn't learned how to iterate fast on like the architecture. So that was like our hardest technical challenge, like learning how to run quick self-contained experiments and doing it incrementally rather than trying out an entirely new architecture stack from scratch. So that was like, I think, our biggest learning, and I'm glad we had it way before we started thinking of product and serving customers, because I can't imagine like us spending a month now trying out a new architecture that leads nowhere. Yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, I'll quickly jump to I'll again play a devil's advocate here, right? And then I have a couple of questions into the next segment after this question. So the devil's advocate question is that, let's say I'm a very, very, very smart engineer. I have just graduated from an Ivy League college, and I saw your company, and I wanted to basically break down whatever you build and reverse engineer it and open source it. So when I do that, essentially, let's say Spur Lite version comes out and it's open sourced, people can build over it. What is something that you think is that a problem? If that comes out, are you in trouble? If it comes out, do you have something to set yourself apart? Which will say like a moat. Basically, you build something around yourself, which will save you from sinking down because of something like that coming.
Yeah, I think I think it was kind of tied to a previous question where we spent a year and a half in the whole research phase. So a big aspect of the moat is just understanding how to operate these agents. And in fact, everything that we do internally is all in-house. So that is definitely something that we consider a big moat, which is understanding how to even build an agent that can browse the web, not just browse the web, but specifically for the testing purpose. There are so many intricacies there that are challenging. So I think that is one. And I think the other thing is just execution, right? Like it's similar to what YC does, where they don't really index too much on the idea because it just does come down to execution. So it's about how you think about product, how you talk to customers, how do you think of go to market, how do you position yourself as a company. So there's so many other factors that play into a success of a company. And I don't think that necessarily this is a tool that is generally like open sourceable, because it is a product ultimately. It's not just tech, but it is a product that's adding some sort of value to a customer. So there's a lot more that goes in under the hood, because each customer that we have it's very specific to each customer. Even though it's a general product, each customer has customizations, requirements that we have to like change the agent to kind of fit towards. So yeah, I think those are the few things that I would mention. And as a company, we would also constantly try to innovate on the AI aspect and always be there. um, you know, we always read all the latest and greatest in AI. We want to always be tapped into the space, and we will also try to be at the bleeding edge at all times. So I think those would be the things.
All right. So one last question is, if AI becomes smart enough to write code well or assist developers to write code well, do you really think testing would be like a key part of what they do? Because at the end of the day, if you know to code well and you can get someone's help who's equally smart enough, it'll be maybe a flawless code. You can never write a bug-free code, but you can maybe close to a flawless code. And if I do a unit test, I think I should be good enough, right? Why do you think AI and your company with AI is going to help these companies out when something like this is going to come out? It's only hysterical because it's two things contradicting in thoughts. I just want to understand what is your perspective about how this contradiction can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So generally, when it comes to code generation, we see that as a strong tailwind for us. Because you imagine, like with code generation units, so internally we use a ton of AI code generation to build, push product, right? But that means like our iteration cycles are so much faster that earlier on without AI, like a feature that would have taken us maybe like a week to build now takes me 4 hours to finish, like end to end, right? So that means like I can quickly iterate and generate code, but then still the final line that pushes me like or that is like stopping me from pushing it to prod is the fact that it still needs to be tested. So like if it still takes me 3 hours to generate a feature, what happens is like we have this huge we are like you end up having a huge backlog of things that are not tested, and they become like the final line of like the testing becomes like the kind of barrier to pushing things faster. So, and we've seen this like happen across multiple companies. You can imagine like people are now pushing products so fast, and then they end up having bugs and regression because they built out like 5 new features this week. They got their like even companies with like that have manual QAs, they got their manual QAs to like test all of this. Manual QAs are not able to like um kind of maintain the same frequency that they were used to because product is just being built faster, and then they have a ton of bugs and regression. And I don't think like honestly in an ideal world like we all build and push like code that doesn't have any bugs, but the first line, like the final line, is basically like your customers interacting with your product, right? So like that is like the end-to-end experience of your application that I think still would always need to be tested. I don't think like we would be at a point because in an ideal world, like it is not one person or one AI who's generating developing code. It is like many people working together, and that is the final application. What renders on your like customer screen is this like final source of truth, right? And that source of truth needs to always be tested. Like I don't think there's going to be any point like where someone just like allows an AI agent to run ham on their code base and then like push out a final product.
Awesome. So I think there will be good engineering managers to review code and make sure that the code is not going to break. But I'll quickly jump into the next part. I want to talk about VC and funding, which is basically the fuel to what you guys are doing. To be honest, is that's what I feel, but you could differ. Um, because ultimately, if you are not well backed and you don't have enough burn money, or you're trying to do scale up, essentially you'll be stuck in a place where you'll need the one moving needle would be the VC and the funding coming in. So just to pitch on that, so you guys had a demo day. You had investors coming to your demo day, I believe, and people saw what you guys were doing. There would be a buzz that you guys are building something. And how did you use that? And how did that help you? First of all, if you had raised money, you can talk about it. And how did that help you move forward and all of that? Could you give us a little explanation on whatever you guys did there, from the demo
Yeah.
day to raising to?
Yeah, I think honestly now a lot of companies are only will raise when you really need the funds. And I think not all companies in YC actually at demo day raise, and that's not because they're not doing well, but it's just that they don't see the need yet. From our case, we were definitely considering like how much do we want to raise, how much do we want, etc. And a lot of that reasoning just came down to, okay, in the next 3 to 4 years, like where do we want to get to, and where are we at with the product, customers? Are we getting to PMF, which is product market fit, and are we getting to a point where we would need to scale a lot? And we did feel like we are, and that we do need those funds to really help us scale quickly. So that was like the biggest reason. So we realized that, okay, we were building in the right direction, product was going in the right direction, and we had a clear sense of how we want to deploy the capital in terms of hiring people, in terms of pushing on marketing and things like that. So yeah, those were the couple of reasons. And I think funding really helps, especially it allows you to experiment, which you really need to be able to do. And I guess the whole theme here is experiments. Like you try one thing, it doesn't work, you try another thing. You don't need to think too much before trying one thing, because you do have like that is the reason why you have the funding, so that you can move quickly and make mistakes. So it does give you that freedom when you're building at all times. So you are, giving up equity for some freedom to really try
Make
a lot
it.
of different things in many different ways. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I think even I have similar thoughts there. I think funding, if I had the opportunity to get my funding piece in, I would have definitely been still working on my startup. It's sometimes it is a little difficult to convince people, and it's great that you guys were able to do it. Do you have any suggestions or like to the people who are trying to raise funds who are maybe not part of Y Combinator but are having a solid idea and are really really good but don't know how to do it properly? So when you were raising funds, I know I've said, right, I hit on doors and I've pitched right to the partners, and maybe it goes through an email and all of that. That happens, that's great. But let's say you finally have some attention, you've got a partner to talk to you. What should be the things that a person should keep in their mind? The founders of the company should keep in their mind.
Um, I think the biggest thing is knowing the value of your product. Like when you're going, you should kind of be at the driver's seat, and you're giving an investor the opportunity to be a part of something really big. You're not begging for their money. You're just saying, "Hey, do you want to be part of this crazy opportunity that I have for you?" And going into those conversations with that confidence and that belief, like you have to truly believe that you don't actually want to give up that equity, but you do because the what's to come, and you're giving people an opportunity to be a part of this. And I think going into any investor meeting or conversation with that attitude is really important. So confidence is like the biggest thing, and confidence will only also come when you yourself know that, okay, you have a lot of customers, you have people that really like what you're doing, and you're on that right direction. So I think feeding those two in and never coming across as desperate, because if you're doing things well, things will work out. And never showing that desperation in an investor pitch.
Okay, that's really nice. Also, do you think that being a team of two really matters when when you're raising money over a single person company, or a person who's just simply trying to build through an MVP as a single person? This is in comparison to two and versus one. Do you think that matters, being a two people company in the early
And
stage?
for example, YC does say that having a co-founder is like really important. It's I think they mentioned like there are a couple of things that you can do to make your life easier. One is get a co-founder. The other one is don't build in hardware. And there was a third one, I don't remember. I don't know, but basically, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. These were like some of the like levers that they were saying. It's just like, okay, these are the couple of things that you just have to do to make your life easier. And I can like obviously like having a co-founder it's been so nice because you always have someone to talk to go through their highs and ups and downs with, especially someone who's a friend. You know, we have each other's backs at all times, and investors also know this, especially when they're talking to younger founders. They definitely do look for having a co-founder, but if you're someone who is more experienced, then I think being a solo founder makes sense if you're like second time founder.
Okay, so that means okay, awesome. So I just want to quickly ask you one final question in this part where you talk about VC and funding. How is your funding been going? And is it something that you can reveal, or is it something that you can't reveal yet? Or have you done some kind of early pre-seed, seed, or whatever round of fund that you're in?
Yeah, it's something that we're going to announce in a few months. So it's not something we're not going to disclose just yet, but
Okay.
gone well, basically.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I want to quickly jump to the final segment and then a couple of fast questions that I want you guys to quickly answer. So before I go to the fast questions, I'll go to the final segment. So this is what I wanted to do with respect to pitching. So there's one part where you do it and one part I do it. So you'll also see me pitch, and I want you to pitch as well. So so hypothetically, let's say if you guys are in front of Mark Cuban and he is really interested into a AI based company and he's into software automation and all of that. So if you have 30 seconds with Mark Cuban in an elevator, what would you do to utilize the 30 seconds? You could like spend a minute to think about what you guys do, but 30 seconds is what I want you guys to talk about, whatever you do. And make sure that he is investing into you. And let's assume I'm Mark Cuban.
Okay, 30 seconds. Okay. Should
Theater,
we
come
just
on, let's
for
go.
it? Should we just go
Yeah,
for it? Okay, okay, okay.
let's go for it.
Um, okay. Let's do it. Okay. Okay, hi, Mark. I'm Sneha. I'm the CEO at Spur. This is Anushka, my CTO. We're a founding team with both AI and product experience, and we're building Spur. So, automation has existed for decades. Today, with AI, we've seen a fundamental shift in the market where we're actually able to build browser agents that can browse the web just like any human can do. And that's the technology that we're leveraging for Spur, where you can literally write a test, an end to end automation test in just natural language, like saying, click on this button, click on that. And that is 60 times faster than writing a test script in code. So, yeah, I
And
guess.
cut. Okay. That's really great, really great. You didn't let your co-founder speak about it, but that's fine. Uh, okay. So the other part of this is me pitching. So here's where it gets interesting. So I was looking into, I want to quickly, I'll be spending 5 more minutes into the entire show and I'll be winding it up. I'll be quickly showing you my screen. Uh, So I've been sitting on different promptings and I was trying to say cloud, basically give me like 5 business plans, which will essentially be good in 2025 with AI in it. And I got 15. I generated 5 over 5 over 5. And I'm going to quickly kind of show you one of it. You can choose, you can just randomly choose. And I'm going to pitch that to you guys. And try to make you feel as though you would invest in me. So yeah, like just read through the first heading and the first core concept, and then if you feel it interesting, say yes or no, and I'll keep scrolling.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the first one.
Yeah, I like the first one too. I want to hear this pitch.
You wanna do this? Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't prepared, so I'm gonna stop my screen. So I'll pitch this. No worries. An AI-powered fitness platform that creates hyper-personalized workout and nutrition content. Certain variables. Okay. It's kind of easier because I do it on a daily basis. I use this. Give me like 30 seconds. I'll think about my 30 seconds and come back. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
To throw in some squash. It's part of the.
Wait, wait, wait. Don't skew my thinking. Let me think. And you guys have any personas to share? Like I was Mark Cuban.
Oh, do we have any what?
Persona. Like I was Mark Cuban. Do you want to be someone?
Oh, we're the Spur
Barbara
founders.
Cohen.
Yeah,
Oh
we'll
yeah,
be
this
the
is
Spur founders.
that's
Yeah.
what, okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's great. Can you guys show your hands? Like, do you guys have a smartwatch? Yes, no,
No.
yes.
No.
Shit, okay. Okay.
Do you want me to set a 30-second timer?
Yeah, I do want you to set one. Just give me like 10 more seconds and
Okay.
I'll just.
We're about to reach our floor, but the
Oh, yeah.
elevator's almost there.
All right, all right, all right. Let's do this. Okay. Uh, when you start the timer, let me know.
Stop.
Okay. Hey, hi Anushka and Sneha. Do you guys work out? I see you guys slouching and you guys are on a hoodie. You guys work out? If not, like I really thought about how working out can be really, really friendly. And it could be something that you could share with a couple of friends. And the whole working out industry without the gymnasium in concept is around $3 billion in market space. And if I could find a way that you, me, and Anushka could all be working out at one time, catering to each other, that's 30 seconds. It ran so fast.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's
So
hard when you're like so conversational.
Yeah.
It's hard to
yeah,
like
I lost
track of
a bit of touch, but I like the story part of it. Like I try to get out a story in whenever I speak about something,
mm-hmm.
and that always sticks to me. It's like a sticky that I want to bring. So
Yeah,
I should get better.
definitely.
All right. So this is going to be the last segment where I ask you quick questions about how AI and software testing is going to change probably, or how is it going to work out? Um, So yeah, let's do this. So how do you think that AI and software testing is going to replace the QA teams in the companies that you're pitching towards?
I think that I don't think we're currently at a point where it will replace the testing team, specifically Spur. We think of it as a product that will really augment and supercharge any testing team. So, an example is one of our customers. Previously, they were able to only like do manual testing, but now that one manual tester is able to drive 95% coverage across the platform. So, he is operating Spur at a crazy extent that, but you still need a human in the loop. So we almost think like Spur is like supercharging testing teams. So it works in conjunction with them and it really helps them boost their processes. And, what one thing that it can do is it can help them scale testing. So with the same number of resources, they're able to achieve a lot more.
Awesome. So how close are we with, since you talked about it's going to boost your entire productivity, how close are we to fully autonomous QA processes?
I would say it really depends on like what do we mean by autonomous QA processes. Are we talking about what Anushka had mentioned, where I just drop a URL in and the agent does it all? Maybe that could be the definition that we go
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
Um,
How far away are you from that?
I think I think it's difficult because understanding the intent is also something that's hard, right? Like, each it's not just simple as maybe an AI today can also generate these test cases, but understanding like, oh, this is a flow that often breaks, and this is that filter in this flow that always has a bug, or this is what I recently did a change on. So there is still some human insight that is required, and I wonder how that would be. Maybe when agents are also the engineers and there's just this whole like agentic software ecosystem that's built out, maybe that would happen where you have like an engineer, an AI QA, a AI product manager, and then AI is just like self-working and they all have their own context and they're able to build. I think when we hit there, then we'd reach that full automation. So maybe 2 to 3 years, 3 4 years, I think possible.
All right, all right.
Looking at
So
the pace at which things are going, I think, yeah, I'm going to be optimistic.
awesome. So the next question is you said about 95% of the productivity or 90% of the productivity could be enhanced, and then there's still the human intervention there. So when you say that, essentially when 90% happens, it just means that you're able to cut down someone else's productivity or time and resource, which essentially means also that you're going to have a sense of fear instilled amongst QA people, saying that, hey, I think AI is going to replace my job. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what do you think about that kind of stance, like the fear that comes into people's jobs when you're trying to build something that could instill that fear? Does that hurt your sentiments, or are you thinking about something that which is very different from what I'm speaking about? How's that for you?
I think one thing that we've seen is actually a lot of manual QAs really like using Spur because they feel like they've finally, they're interacting with real AI agents. They're able to also not just click through the page, but really doing, because their skill is really understanding what to test, how to test, and the subtleties, and not the actual physical process of going in and executing the clicks. So in fact, we've seen a lot of success and a lot of excitement about Spur in the
Hmm.
manual testing community. We're augmenting them to become automation engineers, because ultimately automation is what we think automation is not sufficient. So yeah, we've seen actually a positive push in that sense, where they're really able to focus on the core aspects of their job, which is really knowing what to test, communicating with the team, making sure quality bars are met. And Spur is just that mechanism that's getting them to that point.
All right. So what do you think is the biggest misconception about AI-driven QA?
Um, I think there are a lot of misconceptions also because people just don't understand how it works, and there are many different AI driven QA tools in the market. So many people think that that there's this conception of click and record, where a user will click on the page and then a script gets generated, and that is deemed as AI. In fact, that is not AI, because you're generating a script that gets run after that, and it feels quick because you're clicking on the page. But ultimately, the output of that, which is the script, is actually extremely brittle. And that's been the issue. So that is actually not AI. Real AI is you telling, like a human, getting an agent to go through your flow. And that is what we're trying to do. And many customers that come to us first expect that click and record type of interface. And we come in with something very different. And that is a little jarring for them, because it's like it's not something that they've seen before. And it's almost using Spur is to some degree prompt engineering, is like part of that experience, user experience. So yeah, I think just a misconception of what AI tool, what is an AI testing tool, what is not an AI testing tool, even though it's being marketed as an AI testing tool.
Understood. So what? Okay, so a little off track, and it's going to close down. So what is Anushka and Sneha, if not Spur? What would you guys be doing right now?
Oof, that's
I'll
a
be a
tough
professional.
question.
I'll be professionally.
Okay.
That I know for
I
sure,
would,
because that was what I like. For some context, I've been a professional squash player all the way up to college. So I'd be playing in the 2028 Olympics. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
I would still
Olympics.
be
Awesome.
working on an AI agent somewhere.
Okay. Is this specific to some place that you want to work? Probably if there's no Spur. Like let's say I want to work at Google or something like
No, not a specific place, but I think definitely an early stage startup, definitely working with an AI agent. I'm still like very astounded and really excited about like the tech that we work with. And every day I watch like the Spur agent run our tests, I'm just like so thankful that it exists. So I don't have to do the testing myself. And I just think like AI agents are really cool, and I feel like I would definitely want to be working on this technology nonetheless.
that. And like, the last two questions is, what would you guys do? How is a day offer? What do you guys do offer? What is sometime? What is the things that you guys do off work, off your
Oh,
work time?
okay. One thing we recently did was karaoke.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um, yeah, so that is fun. Um, Outside, I like working out in general, so that is something that I would
My
do more.
karaoke machine is actually behind. I was just
Oh,
looking at it.
really? Yeah, I think it's such a good way to just enjoy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, but for me,
Absolutely.
it would be like some kind of sports, with friends. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
would
do
go
a
on a
lot.
run.
Go on a run. Yeah, awesome. So I do a lot of badminton. I also work out. So those are things that, and I have a karaoke machine. So I kind of, that's the way I de-stress. Awesome. And one last final question is, if you had to be me, um, what would you be thinking? Like be me, like be Badri. What did you be thinking to give as suggestion feedback to do in the next 1 year in terms of content creation, podcasts, and everything, and related to digital content? Because I think you guys are off Instagram, so you guys don't do or see much of that. Whereas my content is on Instagram. So
Yeah,
Uh,
we're tougher audience to ask this question since we're mostly tapped out of this. But I think um
what
it
do you
is true. I think
guys?
like the startup space in India is like really booming.
Mhm.
And if I was working in India on a startup, I feel like I would want to know about more about the Indian ecosystem. So yes, foreign investors are great. Like Y Combinator is such a great accelerator, but I'm sure there's numerous wonderful opportunities within India as well that I could tap into within the ecosystem there. And I would love to learn more about that as someone who doesn't actually know much about the Indian startup space myself.
Okay, awesome. And Sneha, what about you? What do you think someone like me should do for the next year in terms of content?
Um, I someone gave me this advice, which is like try to make content as human as possible. So
Okay, and
what
how?
that means, like okay,
Yeah.
yeah, expanding on what that means, it's like I think in this part, like some to some extent, like it felt pretty natural, right? Like some of the questions were like okay, like factual based questions, but I think diving more into people and in fact like any person that you bring on to speak to, they might not even have had a moment to even think themselves or do that reflection. So actually making that like this like some kind of like an opportunity for them to also really like think through things. So the questions that you ask, I think, can be really powerful, even for the person like coming and speaking to you on the podcast. It's not like they're doing you a favor, but instead they walk out of there feeling like, wow, like I figured out that I had this insight about something that I never had. And I think it takes and those are the most interesting podcasts because you hear about things about the people. Like you might have a founder, but they might have some interesting backstory, back current somewhere. And if you can get to that point in the conversation and distill that out, I think that makes it so interesting. And most people aren't able to really do that very well. So
I
that's
agree.
skill. I don't know how, but yeah.
I think I've told this to Anushka as well. Like, if you know to ask the right question, you'll always get the right answer. So I'm trying to learn that as well. So yeah, absolutely. Like, if you know how to tap a human's story, I think that's the most easiest way to connect to someone. Yeah, that's a very valuable feedback, and I'll take it. So all right, I think that's about it. Thank you